Hey friends, Spirit has a message for us tonight. I asked clearly before I did this what needed to be communicated right now. What message is it that you are having me share? And as we know, well, as you may not know, as I know, your experience in this life is your area of expertise. So our souls agree to come here for certain experiences so that we then can be leaders to others in that area. And you've got so many starseeds incarnated right now here with specific paths to help others. And I asked, what is it that you want me to focus on right now? And I immediately picked up this magazine about the 60s and the decade that changed everything, and flipped open to a page that had this in it. So this I actually got when I was in Scotland, believe it or not. And it talks about your body on booze. And this is, I love that they remind you it's a psychoactive drug. This is something I've experienced heavily in this life and that I've come here to talk about, and specifically talk about as how it relates to our relationships and our children. And I was the child of an alcoholic, and I was also married to an alcoholic. And many of us that are in this collective have been in these emotionally abusive relationships, financial abuse, physical abuse, SA, dealing with narcissists and alcoholics. And it's because going through those experiences cracks us open to our spiritual gifts. And it's also because being these light beings, we attract people who feed off of our light. And the water is a big part of it. We're mostly saltwater, by the way. So, digging into the alcoholism, I took some notes. I've been writing notes forever. This is my integration in action, is finally using my voice to talk about this stuff in a productive way. I was silenced for a really long time, in and out of survival mode through this awakening again. Another fun thing that my soul agreed to come here and do so that I could lead other people through awakening processes after having experienced what it's like to go through plant medicine with poor integration, and then return into survival mode and have to get out of said survival mode again to continue integrating. So it's so good, so much fun. So glad I agreed to do this, but it's okay. I've been being led by guardian angels, ancestors, and guides who have been kind of tricking me a little bit. It's been like this year-long experience and like training camp for discernment and how to spot predators and fun stuff. So growing up in this incarnation as the child of an alcoholic and then marrying an alcoholic, I've experienced the cover-ups, the rampant cover-ups of their behavior, of when, as a child, you are dependent upon an adult to take care of you, and you're dependent on them for your shelter and for your food and for your clothing and for your safety. And it may be someone that you do or do not trust. And I actually was led, in addition to this, which again, there's also Martin Luther King here on the back. I have a dream, right? I was led to two specific places in the Bible today. The first one was 2 Samuel. And it's this Life Application Study Bible, which again, the Bible is filled with allegory, parables, alchemical information, astrological information. And if you have eyes to see and ears to hear, you understand what's truly being communicated and can tell when what's been manipulated as well. And this is what we're going to talk about, is how to spot manipulation, how to spot a fake, how to spot a con, how to be able to tell, discern what we're dealing with. And actually that just took me to another one, Gideon 7, Judges 7. Interesting. But it brought me to 2 Samuel, and it's the beginning of David's reign, I believe, as king. And it starts out with this example of two little kids. This girl coming into a room with her long gown and a high-heeled shoes and a wide-brimmed hat. And there's, a man behind her with his coat sleeves long, rolled up 6 inches, feet shuffling. And it's children playing dress up, copying mom and dad, having watched them dress and walk. And it's talking about role models, people we emulate, people we consider ideal unconsciously. Perhaps we copy their actions and adopt their values and ideas. And what really struck me here is, again, we're looking to our parents to be role models. And if our parents are taking us down, it's like, I don't want to say the wrong path, but the path of harm as opposed to a path of safety, a path of fear and shame and not unconditional love for children. Like, what are we teaching our children? And the second section that I was brought to is where Yeshua is talking to Peter and is telling him, on this rock is where I will build my church. And Peter tells him to stop. Don't say these things to people. He starts to reprimand him. And when Jesus says he's going to suffer and basically die, and for what he's teaching, which was ascension. He was not teaching us here to follow a man at a pulpit or stand in line for the government. He was here teaching us the way of life and that the kingdom of heaven was within. And that when Peter started reprimanding him, he said, "Get away, you're a dangerous trap. You're seeing things merely from a human point of view and not from God's." And I know that I was led to these two places today to talk about my personal experience and what I've gone through in my awakening, because I got a behind the scenes look at the patriarchy and literally how humanity has transitioned into this focus on money and power and control. And it is so related to following in the steps of your parents and role models and what we as parents are teaching our children, as well as picking up your cross and walking with Jesus. And I have to share and admit that through my awakening experience, I ended up, my cross was this, coming from a family where they shove everything under the rug. I talk about airing your dirty laundry, right? And our dirty laundry, in my case, has been that I divorced an alcoholic. That when I questioned or demanded something better from my relationship, I was called the disrespectful crazy one. And this is what people will do in a state of addiction and shame. They will literally throw, this is where the victim blaming comes in. They will throw the other person under the bus. They will do everything they can to make sure that no one around you believes you. And when you are surrounded by people who are also operating under the same illusion, it's like, where's the village? No one's coming out to help when you finally ask for help. And these aren't crazy. This isn't craziness. I got called a witch for, calling into question the basis of Christianity as it is now, where it's basically turned, everybody into these fear, shame, control-based individuals. It's turned our men into these dominating, controlling men, and women into these subservient figures that are, instead of being equal partners with their men, they're subservient, and we're carrying the weight of everything on us, and it's not meant to be that dynamic. And I was going, hey, does anybody see the problem here? Help. And no one wanted to see it. And it's generational. It's been passed down. So after my awakening and basically saying, Yeshua didn't come here to die for our sins. He came here to teach us a way of life. And he upset people and got killed for it. And it is what so many of us have been experiencing, where we're being put in these situations to use our voices, to speak up for what we've experienced and what we've been through, and to shine a light on the hypocrisy, shine a light on the inverted religious system, shine a light on what is happening right in front of our faces. Because when we look at, the basis of Mother Earth as this living organism that has given us everything we need to live and to heal, why are we doing anything man-made? Why are we doing anything unnatural? Why are we doing anything synthetic? And artificial is the word that I like to use. Why are we doing anything artificially? And that's what's happening here, is we're being filled with artificial doctrine. We're being filled with artificial foods, and that's what it all comes back to, right? What you're consuming, and alcohol in particular. What it does to the body is it actually changes your brain chemistry, and it opens a portal of negative energy, and it actually, people aren't the same on it. They do things that they wouldn't otherwise do, and that's the whole point of pointing out that it turns people into animals, so to speak. It turns you into this animal brain where you are hunt, destroy, lust. It is very lower chakra related energy. And the decisions that people make when they are consuming alcohol and consuming it on a regular basis are not in alignment with who they are. And let's be honest, dealing with substance abuse is masking. People are covering up for something, and it is not being directly connected to source. It's not being in an environment where you feel like you can be your true, authentic self. And I'm going to do a part 2 here of this in a minute, because this is where we're all being called to really evaluate our habits, our behavior, and our integration. And I'll be the first to tell you, I made a mess. I made a mess after my awakening, and I'm cleaning it up now, but it's airing out the dirty laundry. And my mess was made in the process of unlearning and deprogramming and remembering who I am, and going through this whole very Notebook situation, very 51st Dates, where it's waking up every day and having amnesia and having to get into the swing of things, of remembering who you are and operating from that standpoint. And in the beginning of my awakening, I was very outspoken about all of the downloads and things that were coming to me, and I was talking to the wrong people, because they used them to paint me out as the crazy one, to throw me under the bus. This is what narcissists do. This is what some alcoholics do when they're put in a corner. When somebody's put in a corner and called out and has the flashlight on them, they're going to attack. And it is the modus operandi to then, let's take the person who knows too much and make them the bad guy. And in my scenario, I have 2 little children who are in the middle of this, and it has just blown me wide open, the systems that are in place that have not taken my children into account. So with that, I'm going to go into a part 2, because this one is getting a little bit long, and we're going to talk about the powers on your plate as well. We're going to talk about mushrooms. We're going to talk about gut health, but we're also going to talk about our children and children's mental health in this process. Okay. All right, go to part 2. Okay, I'm back. Part 2. We're going to talk about brain damage first. And this is where I said we're going to talk about mushrooms and how we heal it. Because when you are in these scenarios where you're going through this narcissistic abuse, this emotional abuse, which I would compare everything that we've been through with religious systems and our government to emotionally abusive relationships. Yes. So what you are experiencing, we've been brainwashed to be in this existence where we are forced to perform for our safety, where we are forced to work, these dead-end, soul-crushing jobs for the purpose of paying taxes and keeping a roof over our heads. And we are divinely sovereign, multidimensional beings here having a human experience, and my soul decided to come here and experience this stuff so that I could give my perspective on it and point out what in the world is going on here. And what we're not really talking about is that getting out of these relationships, you're literally healing your brain, right? You're literally healing your brain. And using Mother Nature and plant medicine and the things that are from the earth, are natural, are here, were provided by God for us to use for our benefit, are the things that can help do that, not the big pharma meds that are keeping you in a loop of band-aiding the problem but not actually getting to the source. And so opening up, increasing your neuroplasticity is going to be the biggest part of that, which mushrooms, all kinds of mushrooms, have been proven to be prevalent for cognitive health and for the flow in your body. So nature mimics humans, humans mimic nature. So when you look at different parts of nature and different, especially foods and things like that, they will indicate to you what they're going to help with. So mushrooms and the mycelium network, like lion's mane, when you get a good big chunk, it looks like a brain. Literally looks like a brain. I posted another video looking at the lion's mane. Helps with cognitive function. And the mycelium network of mushrooms in your body, your fascial system mimics your mycelium network. It is crucially linked to your nervous system. And what's happening when you're coming out of these abusive relationships is you are like, your nervous system has to rebalance because you've spent so long in an unsafe environment that you're constantly scanning for safety and having to evaluate everything going on around you to see if your body feels safe or not. And so regulating your nervous system is a massively important part of coming out of these relationships, coming into your awakening, and handling safety. Being able to tell inner child healing as well is a big part of it, because a lot of us went through a lot of abuse as a child. And you're constantly looking around to see if it's safe or not. And guess what that's going to affect? It's going to affect your relationships, because you are then evaluating everyone for safety and getting triggered and not knowing how to handle that necessarily can cause you to have reactions that you don't understand why you're having them. And so bringing up the alcohol as well is because it's, again, changing your brain chemistry. It's affecting your body. It's actually aging your body as well. It is a toxin. It is a poison in your body. And as soon as I got into my awakening and got into plant medicine, I was sober with no issue. And there's a lot of studies coming out showing how psilocybin is being effective in treating PTSD and substance abuse and anxiety, depression, and it's coming up all over the place. And why I get into this is not only, number one, here's the other example, like trees in the root system mimic your bronchial system in your lungs. Guess what? Trees help us breathe. They clean our air, right? So this is the kind of stuff where when we look in nature and look in our bodies, there's no accidents. Everything has been divinely designed to mimic and show you. We can see on the macro to the micro. That's vice versa. Micro to macro, macro to micro, what is happening all around us. And so what's happening on a bigger scale is very indicative of also what's happening on a smaller scale in our families and down to the individual. And self-care in that regard is something that we've been taught is selfish and that has been discouraged and negated. And it is actually so crucial in being able to contribute to others and give unconditional love. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, if you are not loving yourself, then you are likely unhappy and or in pain, which means you're just going to be angry all the time, right? If you're unhappy and you're in pain, that's most of the time why people are in a bad mood, for one of those reasons, and they don't always understand why. And then we're masking. So we're dumping something like alcohol on top of it. And then you're doing things that you wouldn't normally do. And as I get into this, it's going to be trigger warning specifically related to SA and grape, because again, your experience is your area of expertise. So being able to talk about this stuff because I experienced it. I went through SA in my childhood and wasn't comfortable talking to adults about it. I was the child of an alcoholic and I was not taught that my environment was safe, like ever. And you as a child are then adjusting your behavior to keep the most dysfunctional person in the room appeased, because that means safety to you. You're taught not to hurt anyone's feelings. Like, this is what we're teaching our little girls. I've talked to so many women that are like, oh, well, I didn't bring this up or I didn't do that because I wanted to be nice and I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And it's kind of like, okay, well, we're done with being the nice, good girl all the time right now, because now we're going to talk about all the stuff that doesn't make sense. And I will tell you what doesn't make sense is this court system, family court. And when you are doing the inner work and doing the shadow work and finding these things that have happened to you in your past that you have subconsciously like buried in your brain, or have, I like to call it, like there's a fur rug down here. I'm coming out from under the carpet because my family was carpet sweepers. They like to sweep everything under there, the unpleasant stuff. We came from the South and we don't talk about things that disgrace the family. We came from organized religion. You don't talk about things that disgrace the family. And it's like, it's not disgracing the family when you're telling the truth and you're addressing toxic patterns. So I didn't feel safe talking to adults when I was a child about what was happening to me. Number one, because the adults didn't make me feel safe. And number two, because I was never really taught that what was happening to me was assault. And you wanted to be nice. You didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. So you let it happen. I actually said to somebody the other day, the amount of times I have been SA'd because I didn't want to hurt someone's feelings, or because I didn't want to be the bad guy, or because I had said no and they didn't take it well, so you just kind of let it happen just to survive. And it's the experience that I've gone through in my marriage to an alcoholic and through my divorce. And I struggled with talking about this for a long time because we have 2 small children, and it's like I wanted to be love and light. I wanted to be the person who gives the benefit of the doubt, and I kept being shown that I wasn't going to get that back. And this is all like, it's like very Medusa energy, right? So when you speak up about this stuff, you then, for some reason, our society likes to blame the victim and blame the survivor. And I'm coloring right now because it helps me talk through this stuff. This is integration, right? You're relieving a stressor as you bring up something that can be difficult to discuss and brings you back into a moment. And right now I'm bringing it up because my daughters deserve better and I deserve better. And it just makes you go, what are we doing, people? What are we teaching our children? In my scenario, I stayed with somebody for years after I said I will not allow my children to be raised by an alcoholic. I'm not going to force my children to live through what I lived through. And I stayed for so long trying to keep a family together. And when I finally had enough and decided to leave, my spiritual awakening, my spirituality was used against me to call me unfit, unhinged, because of the drastic changes I was making. My use of plant medicine was used against me to call me unfit. And I'm talking, I had a prescription for marijuana, for medicinal marijuana. It was legal in the state I lived in. And somehow attorneys can go into court and use that against you to call you unfit when it's legal. But when you bring up alcohol, nobody wants to talk about the dangers of alcohol and how it affects how you're raising your children. And I disclosed to court officers the patterns, the repeated patterns, and this is what we're talking about here, is patterns of my ex in driving under the influence and being so intoxicated around my young children that he couldn't function, and being the only adult in the home. When that happened, there was one occasion he actually had to go to the hospital the next day to get fluids because he was so intoxicated at home with my kids that he was having a physical reaction the next morning. I disclosed about times that he SA'd me while under the influence, graped me under the influence, and let's normalize that discussion, shall we? Because marital assault really doesn't get addressed, because people just assume that because you're married that it's not assault, and that's the complete opposite. It doesn't matter if you're married, it's still your body. Even if an act starts as consensual and it goes in a direction that you don't want it to go in and you say no, someone holding you down and not allowing you to move and not allowing you to get out of the position that you are in while they continue to use your body to relieve their sexual needs is assault, okay? That's assault. And there's energy that comes along with that. And children pick up the energy in the womb. They are affected by traumas held inside the mother's womb tissue. So if the mother is a survivor of assault and has not cleared that energy from her womb, it can affect the child. And it's not easy for me to discuss this, but it is necessary, as my first child was conceived during an act of marital rape. And I disclosed this to officers of the court, to which I was told those are domestic issues for you to deal with. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure they're assault. So my experience with the court was my ex, with money and the house and the job, was awarded custody of my children. I was allowed to be called, to have my fitness as a mother called into question because of my choices and change in spirituality, in which I was talking about the shift in human consciousness and everything that's going on now. And my choice to leave the home because I kept asking for somewhere to be safe, and my ex would not leave and would not allow me to stay in the home alone with the children and would not go stay anywhere else. So I chose to remove myself from the situation because I needed somewhere to feel physically safe. And a whole series of events went out from there. But the longer that you leave these things unaddressed, the more they stay in you. And the more that I have been confronted with, this is what you're avoiding. This is what you're not talking about. You're not sharing your story and acting on getting this out there, because you're not the only one, because our stories matter. And what happened to me shouldn't happen. What's happening to my children shouldn't happen. And again, this is because we are living in these inverted systems. And literally, it's like looking at this group of individuals, these court officers, and being like, these aren't domestic issues. That I think they said this isn't our purview. This isn't something that we're concerned about. Your spirituality and your PTSD diagnosis is what we're concerned about for your children. Mr. Pearson's drinking isn't a concern. And what happens is, when you are dealing with alcoholics, when you are dealing with narcissists, when you are dealing with substance abusers, it's masking. They are able to behave one way in front of people, and then they're a different person behind closed doors. And your body knows before your brain does sometimes what is and isn't safe. And I used to remember literally curling up in a ball and crying myself to sleep after being intimate with my husband. And that shouldn't be happening. But my body knew that what was happening to me was disrespect and an encounter, an intimate experience with somebody who was unaligned with me. And this is where I want to tell you, ladies, you're not just sleeping with somebody. You are picking up their karma. You are picking up their toxic energy, and you are retaining energy from that experience in your womb. So this is part of why sex has been cheapened in especially American society, why it has been pushed to have, sexual revolution, go out there and have as many partners and experience. Like, no, you're encouraging your children to pick up trauma. The other half of it is the shame from organized religion, and especially organized religion, that comes along with sexual interactions. And the concept of so-called slut shaming. When women embrace their sacred sexuality again and know how powerful they are, you can't be controlled, right? And that's why the government and society don't want us to know how powerful we are and what sex really is. Sacred energy exchange. So I am finally speaking out about the injustices that have been done to me and my children and humanity, because the whole point is, and I keep saying the whole point, a big part of the point here is, why has alcohol been so normalized in our society, and why has plant medicine been criminalized? Why has it been stigmatized? But alcohol, totally normal, part of an American pastime, right? And I'm speaking from experience. I myself was a functioning alcoholic before I got out of my relationship because I had fallen so deeply into this traumatic despair of I'm so unhappy in this relationship and I don't know how to get out of it with 2 small children and a lady in a wheelchair. I was taking care of my own mother at that point, who was a stroke survivor, who again was an alcoholic when I was growing up and was my original alcoholic narcissistic abuser because she herself was a trauma survivor. She had been abused by her own husband and her family didn't believe her. And when you get into these toxic family systems where people are so detached they can't come to terms with their own behavior, so it's avoid, deny, cover up. Right? Everything's a cover up. Sweep it under the rug. Don't embarrass the family. And when I decided to leave my ex and started talking about my questions on question everything, Christianity and alcoholism and food and the way that we are being poisoned in this country in so many ways to keep us out of alignment, I was the one that was very quickly shut down, called the bad guy, questioned, had my character questioned, my ability to be a parent questioned, when really I'd been taking care of everybody for such a long time. I stopped taking care of myself. I stopped doing all the things I enjoyed. I was so overweight. I was so inflamed, and I was faking it with a plastic smile, drinking 2 bottles of wine a day, smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day, trying to just say, it's okay, everything's okay, it'll be fine, it's okay. Anybody that looks at you and said, it's okay, it's fine, I'm fine, it's fine. It's not fine. It's not fine. So, the whole point of this evening is that just because people are your parents doesn't mean that they should be emulated. However, it is our responsibility as parents and as human beings to be protecting that which is sacred. And what is sacred are women and children. Men are sacred too. But what I'm talking about here is how the divine feminine has been so reduced to a servant as opposed to the divine creatrix that she is. And I had such a hard time in the beginning managing integration from balancing my nervous system. I was making so many decisions out of survival mode that in some of these instances, I am not surprised that they questioned my sanity as a mother, because I had changed so drastically from where I was. But when you take a step back and look at it, the things that I was reporting, the things that women are experiencing, the abuses that we are experiencing at the hands of people who are supposed to take care of us, who have told us they would take care of us and don't, these are the things to look out for in red flags, in trigger warnings, in how to spot the fact that you're being conned, the fact that somebody doesn't really intend on taking care of you. And it's also directly related to how they take care of themselves. So when you see somebody that is drinking themselves into oblivion, that is not showering, that is one person in public and another person at home, these are all red flags. When your friends stop doing all the things that they enjoy doing, red flags. And as I'm coloring with the red marker, it goes to the root of the issue. And unless you're discovering the root of a problem, then you're not going to address it. And a lot of the integration issues that I have personally had through my awakening are a failure to address the root of the issue. And the root of the issue for me has been being in a narcissistic, abusive, psychologically, emotionally, financially, and sexually abusive relationship, and letting it slide so that I could continue having access to my children. And through that process, it's like realizing, oh my God, your children are the ones that are being shown you've been separated from your children. My 2-year-old, she's now 3. My babies have been without a nurturing motherly presence consistently in their home for over a year now. And it's because I struggled to get myself regulated and get on my feet. And we live in a system that caters to the person with the money and caters to the person that can afford the children, not the person that can actually help develop them emotionally or cares about what is actually mentally happening to them. And women are continuously forced to then be putting up with more abuse from the people that they left. And you cannot sit here and say that you care about your children, that your children are your first priority, and then sit there and basically torture their mother, who is responsible for their nurturing, who is responsible for being a teacher to them, who is responsible for showing them how to give and receive unconditional love. And when you're in a situation where someone loves you, but, it's either I love you or I don't. Either you love someone unconditionally or you don't. And if you don't, it means that they have conditions to their love. And we're teaching children in this day and age that love is conditional and that they only get rewarded or they only get love if they follow the rules, if they do what they're told. My 5-year-old told me tonight, "Mommy, I'm worried about getting in trouble if I don't listen to an adult." And we got onto the topic of stranger danger, but it also brings up, again, the point that we've taught our children that they're only good if they listen. She's worried about getting in trouble if she doesn't listen to an adult because she doesn't think that what they're telling her is right to do. And I know firsthand because that's how I grew up. And this is what we're here to change for our children, right? We're here to change it for them, that they know their magic. They know who they are. They know that they are multidimensional beings. They know that they are one with Source. They know that they are inherently good, that they are beautiful little beings and not commodities, and not only valuable if they make you look good or they do what it is that you want them to do. And this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but be bothered by it if you want to. If your children have anxiety-based issues, if your children are showing signs of depression, if your children are showing signs of suicidal ideation and having emotional, I say disorders loosely because it's not a disorder or a disease, it's a response. Your child is responding to something in their environment that they are experiencing. Your body is absolutely an amazing piece of technology, and it's constantly communicating with you and constantly giving you signals of what it wants you to pay attention to. And that's what we're not teaching people how to do. And that's what the nervous system regulation comes in with. And this is what Yeshua was here to teach us, that our body is our temple. And he also revered women and children and treated them with respect. So these are the red flags to look out for as well, that somebody who is not honoring you, who is not loyal to you, who does not give you the time to take care of yourself, who does not allow you to do the things that you love to do, who expects you to change yourself in order to be acceptable for them. That's not unconditional love, people. Not unconditional love at all. And a court system that takes children and puts them in the hands of people who are not providing unconditional love without any concern, that's not a system that I respect or want to be part of. And when I disclosed what was really going on behind the scenes in our home, and that's the thing, it's behind the scenes, right? A look behind the curtain, not the picture, the optics that everybody wants you to see on the outside. And that is what I encourage everybody to do right now in this world, is look behind the scenes, read between the lines, because usually the person who's telling the truth is the one that is the whistleblower, is the one that becomes the outcast, is the one that nobody wants to validate, is the black sheep, right? The one that's usually telling the truth is usually the black sheep, because they're the one that can see past the BS. So right now we are anchoring into truth. We are anchoring into the grid. We are anchoring in to the rise of our consciousness and using our voices to speak out against the things that we know are wrong. And that is where, like, believers are not using their voice. And I'm pointing the finger at myself here, because I have been so quiet recently about using my gifts and sharing my knowledge. And, you know, we're in a time now where Mother Nature, we're here to realize that everything is related. So again, as within, so without, as above, so below. What's happening in nature is a reflection of what's happening with humanity. So when we know we're not taking care of Mother Earth and she's covered in pollution, guess what? We've been doing the same thing to women and children, to women, to the caretakers of Earth. And I don't say this in this like feminist way of like women are the only ones that are being affected here, because I truly believe that men's mental health is a big part of what needs to be addressed in this scenario as well, because they have also not been given a space to feel safe. They've been conditioned to believe that men behave a certain way and men don't cry and men, you know, dominate and men control. And I'll tell you what, it is manipulation on the part of everyone involved. So giving our men a safe space to choose to work on those things as well. As much as women have been conditioned to be subservient and deal with it and grin and bear it and smile through it, men have been conditioned to control as well. So this is what I've been working on while I talk about this. All the little networks, right? Of how this is all intertwined. But at this point, it's the way that alcohol affects our ability to think clearly, our ability to act clearly. It is increasing assaults in this country and things that people wouldn't normally be doing if they weren't using alcohol to mask and to cope. And now masks are dropping. We are in the time that the narcissists are being exposed, and they're being exposed by us using our voices. We're calling out the corruption. We are shining a light on it so that people can see what's going on and we can do something to change it. So today I'm using my voice to talk about it. Today I'm using my voice to talk about everything that I have had to go through in integration and remembering who we are, coming back to my wild self, healing the womb trauma that I have experienced, and doing so while having my children separated from me, and knowing that I experienced this so I could share my story on a wider platform and draw attention to what in the world is happening here. And as I do it, I see this ring I found in it was in my college ring jewelry box, which it's not my college ring, but knowing this stone is in here, it's bringing light to, gosh, what I experienced in college was just rampant alcoholism everywhere, and the things that people were doing, the casual sexual encounters that were occurring that are leaving energetic imprints in people. Next to my royal treatment ring, because I Every woman deserves royal treatment. If you are with someone who does not treat you like a queen, they're not your person. If you are with someone that doesn't treat you with loyalty, with respect, with honor, that gives you the space to be you, they're not your person. That's it. If you communicate your needs and that person is unwilling to meet them, they are not your person. It's time to move on. What I experienced was continuing to accept less than I deserved because I was trying to make it work, because I was trying to keep a family together, because I thought that that was important, because I came from a broken home, parents that split up and didn't want my children to experience that. And really, ultimately, what it boiled down to is realizing that the scenario we were in was much unhealthier than having divorced parents, having two parents that didn't truly love each other and didn't get along. We were roommates. We were not a loving couple. And when you're in that kind of relationship and you're getting like deprivation of touch, and you are like, that affects your serotonin levels. It affects you physically. Your body is your instrument. Your body is a temple, and it needs to be tuned. It needs to be respected. It needs to receive the care that it should as an instrument, as a temple, as a house of God. What is a temple? A house of God. Your body is your temple. Yeshua came to teach us that. He and Mary Magdalene were the power couple walking around as teachers, divine counterparts, divine union. And she was turned into what, a prostitute, because Roman imperialism couldn't have her be in a place of power. Now, could they? So this is what has happened globally to the divine feminine, and we're rising now. We are taking our positions back. We are taking our power back. We are remembering who we are. We're demanding the respect that we deserve as mothers, as wives, as women, as divine sovereign beings. And these systems that we have in place are completely designed to take that away from us. And again, you cannot say that you are acting in the best interest of a child and then removing them from their mother with no support systems. What I experienced in the community systems was major waiting lines and like not a lot of knowledge about what was available to me. And it's mind-boggling when you realize that so much of what you have experienced comes back to what's happening in the bedroom, what's happening in your body, the way we're being manipulated, and that is a direct result of what people are consuming. And it's alcohol, it's food, and it's programming. When you're full of parasites from the food that you've been eating, from the artificial things that you've been eating, you then yourself become a parasite. You then are leeching off of others because you are not making decisions based on source. You are not making decisions from your heart. You are making decisions based on survival, based on animalistic brain, and being stuck in this. It's like invasion of the body snatchers is what's happening, as people's bodies have been taken over by the programming and the parasites. And then they are doing things that they wouldn't normally otherwise do. But the lesson here that I've had to learn is that continuing to cover for that and not talk about it, while I felt that that was important for my children and my access to them, I've realized it's the complete opposite. What kind of example am I setting if I don't speak up about what I've experienced and what I know, so that my children don't have to go through it either? And that's part of how we're co-creating this new earth, is changing these systems so they don't exist anymore, and normalizing holistic ways of life, normalizing that you are good enough just as you are, and that you get to just exist, and that taking care of yourself isn't selfish. And literally my earring keeps going back and forth. It's the scales of justice, and it's like pointing out to people, I see you. You can't hide anymore. You can't hide in the dark, because we are going to shine light on all of these things. We're going to use our voices. We are going to be proud. We are going to be loud. I am so proud of how far I have come from a year ago, of how far I have come from being silenced, of how far I have come from transitioning my body from finding myself again, just loving myself unconditionally. And the biggest thing that I have had to come to terms with is leaving my children in all of this, because at the time I was not mentally making decisions from a sound place where I was like, oh, it'll all work out. I'm just going to be authentically me and give unconditional love and it'll be okay. And it's like, no. You have to realize you're not dealing with somebody that has compassion and empathy in the capacity that you do. And you're not going to get back the same respect. And these court systems are put in place to worry about who's got the money, connections, and who can afford children rather than who can actually provide for them. And we're not encouraging healthy family dynamics. And all of this for me leads back to the Christian church, Catholic Church as well, because I have been shamed for telling the truth by a group of Christians. And it's forgive them for they know not what they do, because they have literally been so conditioned into believing that what they're doing is right that it's like they don't even see it. But it doesn't excuse the loss of empathy, the loss of humanity. And again, the light can't exist without the dark. So, I'm grateful for these experiences that I've had, because it has shown me what's really going on. It's caused me to step into this role of questioning everything. It has caused me to step into this role of realizing, oh my gosh, you have to stand up and speak up. And when you see injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. And we're talking about our children. And we're talking about giving our children healthy environments in which to grow, and not causing further emotional harm and damage. Like, ultimately, that's the baseline. Do no harm. We are here to do no harm. And I'm not saying I'm innocent in all of this, because in my experience, yeah, like I said, I got messy. And there's things I've done in my life that I'm not, that I had to learn from and realize what came back to me because of what I was causing to other people. But what I have seen throughout my entire existence is giving benefit of the doubt to men who didn't respect me, who didn't honor me, who said one thing and did another, and had incredible double standards for me once I became theirs in their relationship. And it was about dominance and control and not respect and partnership. And I married someone who was an alcoholic for the better part of 2 decades. And gaslit me into questioning my own self and sanity, especially when it came to me remembering who I was. And having a spiritual awakening and being surrounded by people that are still asleep is a challenge. It is a challenge. But I am finally surrendering and using my voice and sharing my perspective, because this is about humanity. This is about human rights. This is about the life that our children deserve. This is about the liberation of all sentient beings. This is about our birthright as sovereign beings and on this planet, and recognizing the things that have been put in front of us as convenience and have been normalized and shoved in our faces are pretty much everything that we should question. And that people are so caught up in scared of being what happens when they die, that they refuse to live, that they forget to live. And we are here to live, and we are here to be an example of that for our children, and our children and the next generation in the future. So nothing changes if we don't change. So the future 4444, when I said that right now, will not get better until we actually take steps to make it change, and we allow them to have an environment in which they thrive. And so telling your story, using your platform for good if you have one, and recognizing that the shaming of women, I almost said shaming of Wiccans. Call me a witch if you want. We're not witches. It's just women who've known too much. But we are witches, oracles, shaman, seers, whatever. Like, your womb is a powerful portal to God. So of course they don't want us to know how to use it properly. But tonight I felt very called to discuss what happens, what alcoholism is doing to our children. And it is priming us to be victims of SA and grape, and not teaching us how to talk about it, or providing systems that actually protect survivors in that respect. Because I disclosed it, and not only did none of the individuals in the court system think that it was worthy enough to garner any attention. My own therapist, we get diagnosed with PTSD, and it's like, look, I flipped it right over to ready, set, go. Ready, set, go. My own therapist they just diagnosed me with something, but to give me any tools on how to manage it. We got protection. You, your loved ones, and your possessions are safe and protected by heaven. And that's why I'm finally using my voice. And I am so happy to see this, because it is a mother mermaid holding a baby mermaid. It's about protecting our children. And guess what? Children need their mothers, and need their mothers healthy. And look, I flipped right open to it as well. You, your loved ones, and your possessions are safe and protected by heaven. Your prayers, which ask for safety and protection, have been heard and answered. Any attacks or threats are now a thing of the past, washed away with the tide of heavenly love. This love is clearing away your insecurities so that you can feel totally secure. When you ask heaven to watch over you, your loved ones, your home, and your possessions, your prayers are instantly answered. There's no hesitation or delay on heaven's part. It's done as soon as you ask. Your energies can now be directed in meaningful and creative ways, with your minds clear of worries. Enjoy the day. Ask and you shall receive. That's also what Yeshua taught us about the kingdom of heaven. Ask and you shall receive. So, ask. Oh, what did I just turn to? Divine magic. Extra magical energy surrounds your situation right now. Expect miracles. That's what's happening for this collective. And that's what happens. The sooner you align with your purpose and using your voice here, things start to line up for you. So when you get called, when you feel called to discuss these things, again, your experience is your area of expertise. So if you're like me and you've experienced a life at the hands of narcissistic abuse, emotional, psychological, and financial and sexual abuse, those are going to be the things that you are an expert at, and being able to see what's going on around you and help incite change to be able to give perspective. You can't force anyone to change, but you can give your perspective on your experiences. You can coach others through what you have been through, where they don't have to go through the turmoil that you may have necessarily gone through in yours, because you did it the long way and the hard way, kind of like I did. And shining light on these systems. One person may not be able to change the entire system, but once we start sharing our stories and sharing our perspective and shining light in this darkness, it helps. And I will tell you, part of the darkness that I've had to work through, the shadow that I've had to work through, is feeling like I abandoned my children because I was going to take care of myself. And part of that is, I was meant to take care of myself, but I was also meant to stand up for myself. And I didn't know how to do that properly because I was never really taught how to stand up for myself. I wasn't taught that it was safe. And every time I did, I was questioned, I was gaslit, I was ridiculed. And healing the witch wound related to using your voice was a big part of it. So tomorrow, we'll talk some about witch wounds. How about that? Feel good? We'll talk about witch wounds tomorrow. Sound good? Okay. All right. On that note, I'm going to get ready to go to bed now. I'm going to do a cord cutting and a clearing for talking about all of that. And we're going to dig more into this. And I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear your stories about surviving, about recovery, because recovering from all of this has been really isolating, and it shouldn't be isolating. You're never alone. And oh, did you see that orb just fly by? And operating in community is how we integrate properly. Okay, so on that note, I love you. Have a good night. This is the Hunt for Healthy today, right? When we talk about what is healthy for our children, what is healthy for our bodies. Alcohol was actually originally developed for medicinal purposes and for gut healing and to be used in surgeries and things like that to help numb pain. So again, it's used for numbing. And when used improperly, we're numbing out the things that we should be feeling. You got to feel it to heal it. So thank you for joining me. Liz, not your common shaman, for tonight's episode of Hunt for Healthy and finding a healthy me so I can be a healthy mom and a healthy being here on earth. Because even though highly evolved souls come here as star seeds to help with this ascension process, we're still here as humans. We're having a human experience. Now, remembering that humans, we are multidimensional, divinely sovereign beings, like Yeshua taught us, like Mary Magdalene was teaching, and others before, but I work directly in that Magdalene bloodline, and have this experience for teaching these things. This is what I agreed to come here and do. So you're welcome. Love you. Have a good night. This is all about our children, what's being done to our children and how we make it better. So we will talk tomorrow. I love you. And I mean it. I really do. Unconditional love for everybody, right? Boundaries are important, but I love you. Good night.